All right, welcome everybody. I'm going to spend the next 20 minutes talking to you all about harnessing customer data with a composable CDP, so with a composable customer data platform. So hopefully an interesting topic for you all. I'm not Darren Hacken, so this talk was supposed to be given by Darren, who runs data at AutoTrader. AutoTrader, one of the largest, they are actually the largest automotive website in the UK, and one of the largest websites in the UK, an incredible digital business. I am going to present the presentation that Darren prepared for you. Darren was ill this morning, which is why you're listening to me rather than him. But I worked closely with Darren through his implementation of Composable CDP, so I can hopefully channel my inner Darren, even if I'm not as handsome or have as much hair as Darren. As background, I'm co-founder at Snowplow, which is one of the technologies that was implemented as AutoTrader as part of the Composable CDP. And we'll talk just a little bit about Snowplow as part of it, but it's only as is relevant to the journey that Darren and the AutoTrader team went through. So we're going to cover a few things today. We're going to start with intelligent products, and the idea that today we're baking intelligence into many, many more of the products and services that we as businesses are delivering and we as consumers expect in the products and services that we engage with. In the context of intelligent products, we'll look at what is a CDP. And once we've defined a CDP, we'll define a composable CDP and what makes a composable CDP different to a CDP. And we'll start to discuss some of the trade-offs, some of the pros and cons of taking one approach rather than another, before thinking about how the industry might evolve going forwards. Because CDPs are a relatively new category of technology. They've been around for they've been a big topic for the last sort of 5 years, and people have only really started talking about composable CDPs really in the last year, 18 months. So they're quite a new innovation, a new way of thinking about things. But let's start with intelligence and digital products. So none of you here will be surprised by this graph over here. The amount of data that we as a human race are creating day by day, month by month, and year by year is just growing. It's growing exponentially. And part of the reason for that growth is for every intelligent product that we engage with, there's a huge amount of data that those products give off. This morning I brushed my teeth with my smart toothbrush. That emitted all kinds of data related to how long the brush was dwelling on the different parts of my teeth, and then served that back to me in a useful application that told me that I'm neglecting the incisors on the back right of my data. That's just one example. We're seeing many, many more examples of intelligence built into products, and that creates more data. But that data is also the data that drives these products. And we use these products every day, and they're getting more and more intelligent every day. We log into email now, and our email client will bubble up those emails it thinks are most important for us to look at. And thank goodness it does, because that helps us orient around the 200 unread emails that have landed. If we think about a totally different experience, the search experience, search has always been a data-driven experience. We think back to Google's original innovation with PageRank. Search was a data application. It was one of the original data products, if you will. But search today is much, much more intelligent than the search that Google drove back then. Most of the search results that we see, certainly that Google serve, are personalized. And as we'll see when we come to AutoTrader, search is a core part of the AutoTrader experience, and making that search more intelligent, using the data to make it more intelligent, was one of the big use cases for CDP for AutoTrader, and a big value driver for them when they rolled it out. We're seeing more intelligence in our TV with the advent of smart TV, and even something as benign as changing channel has become more of an intelligence-led product. Checking our bank balance used to be a very straightforward thing. We just see the transactions, but now we've got startups in the fintech space and retail banks that are rethinking that experience to try and provide more useful information to somebody orienting around what's been going on in their bank accounts, they can make better decisions, building intelligence into those financial service products. Something as simple as keeping a queue of people ready to speak to our telephone support. There's now a lot more intelligence that we can build into those queuing mechanisms, so we can prioritize those customers that are more important or that have more pressing inquiries. So we're just seeing intelligence being built into more and more products that we interact in day by day. And for Auto Trader, really there was this, if we want to understand why Auto Trader went off and invested in a composable CDP, the starting point is really what sort of experience do they want to create for their customers, and how do they want to build intelligence into their products and services. Auto Trader wanted to build personalization into their products and services. So at the heart of Auto Trader is this marketplace where buyers come to buy cars and retailers come to sell cars. And the way we buy cars and the types of preferences we have vary wildly between different individuals. So if we can understand those individuals, if Auto Trader could better understand those people, they could deliver a better experience, drive more sales, grow more value, create value for their customers and create value for their business. So personalization was one area they wanted to realize this vision of intelligent digital products. Engagement was the second. Buying a car should be fun. People are passionate about automotive, passionate about what they drive, and if the experience can be fun, if it can be, Auto Trader can grow engagement and can deliver more of that experience in their site and in their digital platforms. We as car buyers have the option to go and buy a car wherever we want and go and do that research wherever we want. But the more Auto Trader could understand that journey and cater to it on the site, the closer the relationship they can build with their customers, the better the experience, the more likely they are to facilitate the sale. Advertising is a big part of the Auto Trader business, and advertising is an industry we know works much, much better with high intelligence. Intelligently targeted adverts are good for the companies that are advertising. It means they're getting those ads in front of the people that are interested in them, and are better for consumers. They're seeing ads for the products that they want. Those ads aren't an interruption. They become part of the experience. That was part of the vision. And then exceptional customer experience. Could the Auto Trader team build deep knowledge of their customers and use that to consistently surprise and delight them across their customer experience? And finally, experimentation. Can the data and that insight about customers be used to help them experiment with innovations in the platform, so that they better understand the impact of those innovations and build comfort that those innovations drive value for their different customer segments? So intelligent digital products is part of the story, but part of the story around CDP is about rethinking value and about rethinking the customer's role in value. And I want to do Darren's example here in this slide justice. So Darren gave the example of buying a set of headphones. I'm not sure from which manufacturer and which service he bought it, and the headphones arrived and the headphones were faulty. And so he got in touch with the company that sold them to him and said, look, the headphones don't work. You're going to need to send me a new pair, fully expecting that company were going to tell him, well, okay, we'll do that, but you need to return the headset. And he was very surprised when the company said, okay, great, we'll send you a new pair. Don't worry, you can keep the faulty pair. Dispose of it as you dispose of it responsibly. You don't have to send it back to us. And for Darren, this was a really nice example of two things. The first thing is customer centricity. The business valued him as a customer and his time as a customer and his loyalty as a customer. And that was important to him, and that was important to the business, and that was something that they optimized for. So that was almost a value around customer centricity. And the second thing is around data. So that business were able to work out that the saving that they'd make by forcing Darren to return the headset, they were able to quantify that and offset them against the value generated in terms of his loyalty through the good customer experience. And so they're actually able to they're both able to put a value on the customer loyalty and trade that off against the types of items you typically find in the P&L, which is a data problem. And customer data platforms stand at that intersection between enabling businesses to much better understand their customers and the value of those customers, and using data in a systematic way to better serve and drive value from customers. And so there's this quite interesting broader shift that's part of the reason I think so many organizations are interested in CDP today. As an aside, how many of you have implemented a CDP, at least one CDP in your organization? And how many of you are actively looking at implementing a CDP? Okay, so it's about 10% of you have already done it, and looks like another 10% exploring it. I'm quite surprised. I'd have thought both percentages would have been higher, but for exactly the reasons about customer value and data centricity that I just described. Coming back to the presentation, if we want to build that deep customer insights, and we want to use that to build intelligent products that deliver much better service, much better customer experience, then at the heart of that, at the foundation of that, is really understanding our customers, understanding our users, and not just understanding our users, but understanding their behavior. And if you think about how we as businesses have understood customers and the types of data we've used to do that historically, the type of data that we've been using for the last sort of 30 years or more has been demographic data that describes what socioeconomic group this individual is, what gender they are, where they live, these sort of broad categorization. And that's been used, in the 90s to drive successful direct mail campaigns. It was used even before the 90s and the late 80s. In the 90s, we saw the emergence of loyalty programs, things like Tesco Club Card and so on, and companies, especially in retail, starting to use data about what people had bought to make predictions about what they were likely to buy. And that drove a wave of innovation and enormous amounts of value for companies like Tesco and so on. But today, in the digital economy, where we're interfacing with digital apps and digital experiences, and we're looking to personalize and optimize those experiences, that data, demographic and transactional data, is very coarse. There's only so much we can do with it. And actually, we've got to drill in a level of data deeper into the actual behavioral data, the data that describes what our users are doing second by second and minute by minute, the specific content items that they're engaging with, the specific offers that they're engaging with. And as you'll see with the Auto Trader example, as we sort of talk about it, that granularity of data is essential to build the intelligent profiles to actually effectively target users and drive value for them and value for our businesses. So it all starts with user behavior and understanding user behavior. And there's this value chain. This is presented as kind of Maslow's hierarchy, because you need to have done the stages at the lower end of the hierarchy before you can get to the high value bits at the top. And we often forget this in data. Often when you walk around the exhibition today, you'll see some version of this diagram, but it'll be rotated 90 degrees. It'll be a technical architecture diagram, and on the left you see the different data sources coming in. You see movement of that data into centralized cloud data warehouse or lakehouse, and your ETL and your data storage. You then see the anomaly detection and the data preparation. Then there's some data modeling, some AI, some BI that's done on the top. And then, like in the data architecture diagrams, typically some activation. In terms of sophisticated of analysis, where many of us hope to get to is that AI and that deep learning at the top. And the trouble with representing this diagram at 90 degrees is we often jump to the stuff at the top or the stuff nearer the top, because that's interesting and that's where the value is created. But we neglect these foundational layers that need to be there for you to get any value from those parts of the top. And so thinking about this from a foundational perspective is really important, and that was key for Auto Trader on their journey. So what Auto Trader really wanted to do with Customer Data Platform was build a foundation. For them, there was a wealth of different use cases, a wealth of different ways that they imagined they could use customer data to build better experiences and drive more intelligent marketing campaigns for their customers. And what they wanted to do was put in place a foundation, put in place the infrastructure to let them, in an agile way, sequentially execute these use cases one at a time, on top of a solid foundation. And that's a theme we'll be returning to as we go. So this up here is a generic technical architecture for a customer data pipeline, and we'll spend a bit of time talking through this and then looking at how Auto Trader went about building something like this, taking a composable approach. So if we start here on the left, you've got your different sources of data. If we're going to build customer intelligence, if we're going to build customer data, the richer the data that we have and the more sources that we're able to pull in, the more intelligence we're going to be able to derive, the more intelligent, the more inferences we're going to be able to make about our customers. And so we're distinguishing here between first-party data sources, so data that we know about our customers because they're our customers. So Auto Trader have websites, applications, server-side systems, and they're able to create data from those systems using tracking SDKs in real time as people are engaging in things like their website. But they also use third-party providers to engage with their customer base. They advertise on Google and Facebook, and they use different SaaS solutions, different parts of the business. And so those SaaS solutions are a source of data for Auto Trader, as are their first-party applications. So data comes out of all those different sources for different parts of the customer journey. It's unified and centralized. And then on top of that, there's the data stitched together. So Auto Trader identify that this user on mobile is this user on the website, is this user that was forwarded to this car dealership and subsequently went on and bought this car. There are then profiles and segmentation that are built on that. So this anonymous user with this cookie ID is actually is in the market for a high-value electric car, and we think this user is likely to make a purchase in the next couple of months. And that takes us into predictions. And then that intelligence needs to be pushed into the different places it can be activated. So it can be activated on Auto Trader's own properties, on their first-party services, on the web, on mobile, and server side. And Auto Trader built a profile service that did this, so an API that any of their applications could ping with a user ID to get metadata about who that user was and which segments they belong to, and then personalize the experience accordingly. But similarly, they want to activate that data in third-party systems, and they used a reverse ETL vendor to do that. So we'll go through this in a bit more detail, but that's the architecture at a high level. And this maps to what Auto Trader did, but this broadly maps to any sort of CDP setup, regardless of vendor and regardless of company. This is a pretty generic CDP technical architecture. So let's take that architecture and look at how Auto Trader applied it. So the heart of the Auto Trader experience as a customer is the experience of browsing for a new car. How many of you have actually used the Auto Trader website? Oh wow, all right. We don't have to go into too much detail here. So at the heart of that experience is a search box. You put in the type of car you want, and then Auto Trader will serve you a bunch of different search results, and each of those search results are pretty rich. They'll include photos of the car, price, information about offer, and so on. And all of that is very interesting data that needs to be tracked. So Auto Trader worked with us at Snowplow to set up very, very detailed tracking, so they could see second by second and minute by minute exactly what users were doing on their website, but critically exactly what cars they looked at, what searches they performed, and all the metadata about all the different listings. And I think for each car that a user viewed, there were a couple of hundred data points that Auto Trader tracks. So it's a very, very rich data set that they were creating. And critical to creating that data set in a way that made the data actionable and easy to build intelligence was structuring that data with a sensible set of schemas that represented the entities that matter in the Auto Trader business. Schemas that describe the different cars and the makes and the mileage and all the relevant data points there. Schemas that describe the offers and the promotions and the sort of the Auto Trader approach to discounting and so on. And all of that rich information, including where the different listings are shown on a screen, was then captured and fed into their data warehouse. So that's happening on the web, but the web is just one channel for Auto Trader. Auto Trader also engaging with their customers via chat and via ads. And so the ads, the data about the ads that have been shown, that would be pulled from their different ad platforms via Fivetran. So all that data is being aggregated into one place. And so what ends up happening under the hood, if you look in the Auto Trader warehouse, is they've got these very, very granular event-level data coming in, describing what's happening to their users second by second and minute by minute. So we can see, the users viewed this Jaguar that's a petrol car, and they viewed another Jaguar that's an electric vehicle, and then they viewed 3 vehicles that are a Mercedes and electric. And then they're running a set of DBT models that are aggregating that data up to higher level units of analysis that are more actionable and easier for a business analyst to view. So they're summarizing here that this particular user, who I think in our example is Darren himself, has viewed 3 Mercedes cars and 2 Jaguar cars, and 4 electric cars and 1 petrol car. And that information is then aggregated up another level to put Darren in the segment of somebody who's interested in an electric car and somebody who seems to be interested in premium brands like Mercedes and Jaguar, not your Fords and your Vauxhalls. And so out of that, Auto Trader able to create a profile for Darren. Darren is somebody who likes to chat, engages on the chat channel. He's a high propensity buyer. All that underlying data has enabled Auto Trader to say this guy really is in the market and we think he's going to buy a car soon, and he's got a preference for an electric vehicle. So that's super valuable information. Actually, how are they now going to go about and activate that data? Auto Trader work with Hightouch, who are one of the reverse ETL vendors. So once they've computed all those different segmentation, those different attributes on Darren in the data warehouse, they used Hightouch to go off, and you can see the Hightouch UI over here, and push that information into their different ad platforms. And then they're able to go and target ads for electric cars in this example to the users on their platform that they know are interested in electric cars. And they can even use features like lookalike audiences in Facebook to go off and target ads against people that Facebook think look similar to these electric car buyers that Auto Traders identified. So what I've just walked through here, that flow of data, that's at the core of the CDP, starting with the data collection from the user experience, through to computing intelligence on that data, through to pushing that intelligence into a third-party tool and activating it by serving more targeted ads. If that's the core of what CDPs do, actually, if you go out and talk to a CDP vendor, that's just the beginning. There's a lot more that many of the vendors in the space offer. A lot of them have, a lot of them offer out-of-the-box experimentation, the ability for data scientists to build and run notebooks, the ability to do machine learning, to train machine learning algorithms and go off and run them in production. And some include functionality to enable on-site personalization. So when you go out and you buy a packaged CDP, there's an enormous amount of functionality that's baked in, and that's very exciting, but it's kind of scary at the same time. Because many of these technologies are built in a very monolithic way. You've got this single application that you're buying, often for very, very high price tag, that's supposed to do all these different things. And that's kind of terrifying, because how do you evaluate how this thing does all of it? And so Auto Trader went on this big roadshow. They went and spoke to a whole host of CDP vendors, and it was very hard for them to figure out which vendor was right for them. They were clear on some of their immediate term use cases, but they knew there were a number of ways that they might evolve as a business, and they knew that buying a big monolithic CDP might not work out in the long term. And so it's kind of interesting to think about this horizontal pivot, this difference between vertical suppliers, so an end-to-end CDP that does every part of the value chain, or a horizontal pivot where each part of that data architecture, each part in the supply chain is owned by a different company. And that kind of composable architecture, that composable approach, where instead of going to a single vendor, you're effectively assembling your CDP by going to different vendors for the different parts. That creates extra work because there's extra integration to do to lock these pieces together. But the big advantage, and we'll talk about the pros and cons, the big advantage is if there's a lot of innovation in each of those different layers, you get to benefit from that innovation. You're not waiting for the monolithic vendor to go and incorporate that innovation and work it up and down their stack. And so composable architectures tend to take off in places where you're seeing a lot of technology innovation and a lot of disruption, and that's definitely the case in data, as I'm sure you've all seen here today. So I'm going to skip over this slide, but Darren kind of makes the point that we've seen this horizontal pivot in industries like CRM for Salesforce and big data with Hortonworks, and we're now seeing something similar happening in CDP. So in CDP, you've got the monolithic vendors, your Segments, your mParticles, and your BlueConics. But increasingly, what you're seeing is companies that are going with a different vendor for each different part of the stack. And in Auto Trader's case, they used Fivetran for data collection. They used Snowplow for user tracking. They used BigQuery and Delta Lake for their storage and compute layer. They built their segmentation and their profiling in dbt and Databricks, and then they activated that data with high touch at the top. But that's just the selection that they're using today. One of the benefits of this approach is they can swap vendors in and out pretty easily. It's not like they're locked to a single monolithic provider. And so this is a reference architecture for a composable CDP. It's broadly the same. It's the same boxes that you're seeing in the generic architecture that I showed earlier. But here we're just highlighting that in Auto Trader's case, they're using Snowplow to generate this, to solve that user tracking challenge, to generate this very, very rich data set that describes second by second and minute by minute what their customers are doing. They're using Fivetran to pull particularly the advertising data in. They're pulling this all together and computing a golden customer record for all their users here in Databricks, and then activating it via high touch. And for Auto Trade, if you had to boil this down to one reason they went for this, is they wanted to take an agile approach to CDP. CDP has all the hallmarks of a big waterfall, high investment, high time to value, long time to value project, and they wanted to take an agile approach to continuously deliver value. And so that architecture that they delivered sequentially. They put in place the data collection to start off with, and they started building some customer profiles. At this point, they really just had Snowplow. They started building some customer profiles, and that helped them, their reporting and their analytics team and their experimentation team start to run experiments. It delivered some value straight out the box. They then started pulling in data from third-party sources, and that enabled their marketers to start optimizing their marketing campaigns much more effectively. They then brought in the reverse ETL, so they could push those profiles out and start targeting audience more effectively. And then the thing they've done most recently is built a profile service that's enabled them to personalize the search results on their website, and that's driven a massive increase in conversion rate for them. So it's all about, for them, emergent design over big design up front, the flexibility of a CDP versus a monolithic architecture. Bunch of benefit from the data living in their platform in terms of the flexibility of the data modeling. Really important for them because they have business customers that advertise, and there's one set of data processes for them, and a separate set for the consumers who are actually on there buying cars. You want to treat them quite differently. Those customer profiles are used well beyond the CDP, and they're using the right data tools for each persona. So their data scientists are using the tools that they want, their finance people are using the tools that they want, and their developers are using the tools that they want. And now I really have got to wrap up because I have run out of time. But if any of you are interested, come grab me and we can talk about how monolithic and composable CDPs can work together. Thank you.